Welcome to the Future Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Peace, CEO and founder of Sway Outcomes. We are a global customer engagement consultancy, helping brands to build repeatable customer revenue streams through innovative customer strategy. In this podcast series, we look at the future of customer engagement. We understand that tomorrow's customer is hard to reach. Retaining and growing customer relationships has never been so difficult. I'll discuss the latest challenges and solutions with industry champions, and we focus on what's next for the future of customer engagement. If you'd like to be on the show, then find me on LinkedIn. I'm always looking for new and interesting discussions with visionaries of customer success. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Future Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Peace, CEO of Sway Outcomes, and today I am joined by Allie Ferguson, Senior Loyalty Strategist from the US. Allie, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about blockchain for loyalty, which I know you've got a lot of expertise in. So please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thanks, Tom, and certainly hello to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Ferguson, and I've spent the wealth of my career working in customer loyalty and loyalty program design, and as well as supporting areas like data strategy, MarTech, and CRM. So certainly the topics that Tom covers here are near and dear to my heart, including emerging technologies like blockchain. To tell you a little bit more about me, the long arc of my career has been in loyalty consulting, working across different industries and different problem statements and different stages of maturity for loyalty within a company. Everyone from Chase, a very sophisticated player looking to refine their loyalty offers to customers to increase card usage and the value of their co-brand products, to Subway, who is seeking to reimagine their Subway Rewards program into a digital gamified cashback experience, to other brands like Sony Rewards, which in the day was really seeking to capture the entertainment consumer that they didn't have direct connection with, getting them to advocate for their content and movies and things of that nature, as well as creating a credit card proposition for them as well. So a lot of different use cases out there in loyalty. I've also spoken a lot about loyalty at conferences you may be familiar with, like CRMC and the DMA back in the day. I've taught loyalty education and certainly enjoyed being on podcasts like this one here with Tom to really explore the emerging topics in loyalty that help keep us all on our toes and hopefully making our loyalty value propositions the best for businesses and consumers alike. So really glad to be here to discuss this topic with you. And it's certainly one I'm learning about, much like AI.
Yeah. AI is also massive, and I think there's been a lot of buzz about AI over the last 18 months or so. But we're going to talk a little bit more about blockchain. And I think this conversation came about because I wrote an article for the Loyalty Leaders podcast and the FT events groups, all about blockchain and how it's starting to come into loyalty more and more. And we had a conversation because you've been using blockchain a little bit in some of the projects that you've been working on. And I think it's a really fascinating area, actually. And I believe it's bringing a lot of advantages and innovation to loyalty programs. And I know you agree. And I think there's been some doubters in the industry and some naysayers to sort of say that this isn't the solution. But we think it is. So let's discuss. But what I would say for any listeners before we dive into this conversation is absolutely not about crypto. We're not saying crypto is right for loyalty. We're saying the blockchain technology underneath crypto is what enables a lot of advantages. And we're going to talk a little bit about those advantages right now. And Ali, over to you. I think the first thing that you wanted to talk about was how blockchain potentially can increase reward achievement, make it a bit easier and faster, etc. So tell us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tom. When we think about the mature loyalty industry, and we think about, at least in the US, some 90% of companies in some industries have a loyalty program, yet the engagement statistics that we see in programs, whether working with a client or just the general statistics that you say, is that there are gaps in engagement. Often 50% of customers don't earn a reward, and a lot of times they haven't achieved the behaviors that they need to do to earn a reward, or maybe they don't even know how to do that or how to achieve that award. And so there's a lot of programs out there, but only a small share of members are really engaged, and that leads to a cycle of loyalty leaders having to revalidate, redesign programs consistently, instead of sometimes focusing on why haven't my current members achieved within my current construct. And I think that blockchain can provide a way to do that through both the time basis by which a blockchain allows rewards to be earned and used, meaning there's some frustration with how long it takes to get the points, and then they expire when I don't know they do, and then it may be challenging to use them. So I think that's some of the bigger challenges in loyalty, that because of the blockchain technology, in a number of ways, loyalty programs would benefit from having that support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sort of changeability, that variability of what people want as earn and burn solutions, but also I think that we are much more impatient now. We want instant gratification. So those programs that are like, oh, stay with us, fly with us, shop with us for 18 months to 24 months. And at the end of 18 months, that might be worth something. You might be able to get an upgrade or a free something. I think it's too long. I think people looking at that, especially the younger generations, are thinking 18 months is way too far out. I'm not going to engage with you as a loyal customer for that long before something becomes valuable. So yeah, that instant gratification, and that maybe is where not only blockchain, I mean, you can design a program that provides instant gratification, of course, but I think blockchain starts to help in that way, right?
Yeah, I feel that a lot of programs, including ones that I've worked with, and you see some of the newer platforms and technologies out there in the loyalty management system space, have really recognized that there's a merging of incentives when you think about discounts or cash back, that those are also currencies besides thinking about points. And I think more programs have gone to a cashback model. I think more customers have leaned into cashback financial products, for example, and they want the micro reward of getting instantaneous value to use back on the transactional element of things. And certainly the closer that a loyalty currency comes to an actual currency in the sense of its immediacy and its usability,
its tradability,
the more valuable. And then we think about, on the softer benefits side of the loyalty construct, things that have value but aren't necessarily directly dollar based. So that might be an upgrade on an airline. It might be a service in a retailer for tailoring. It might be some sort of free gift or what have you, the other types of loyalty rewards that I'm availed to me, but I may not need them. I
Yeah.
may not be able to use them. I may want something else, but I don't truly own it. And I think the blockchain challenges us to say, if we're rewarding a customer and we assign them an asset like an upgrade, isn't it interesting to think of them actually owning it straight out, and whatever they want to do with it, then they can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, isn't it? And I think an upgrade or a airport lounge access or a discount for a meal or anything like that, if you can't use it, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. So
Mhm.
if you're not going to fly, you should be able to donate it to your sister or your daughter or whatever. Or if you've got a discount for a meal, but you no longer live in that city, then you should be able to give it it's one of your friends that used to live there, etc. That level of control is just not there for a traditional loyalty program. But blockchain could create that, right?
It certainly could. And when we think of mechanisms and gamification within loyalty, and a lot of the motivators behind gamification, such as sharing or referring or things of that nature, that sort of concept you were just discussing really brings that to life in a different way other than, say, forwarding an email. In other words, if I receive a reward from a retailer that said, I just received one from a upscale retailer that said, thanks for being a loyal customer. Here's 15% off code. Use it now till the end of the year on anything you'd like. But if you can imagine, I got 5 of those passes and I could just give them out. And I don't mean emails that I forward to someone. I mean objects that are beautiful or
Yeah,
that may have the brand's items in there that are personalized to women who spend too much money on clothes like myself. And I could give those to my 5 friends through Apple Wallet or what have you. I'm making this up, but it's possible there. Like those type of things that say, "Oh, that seems cool," but now those things are becoming more possible. Those
yeah,
ideas that take things out of the inbox and into more of a truly
yeah.
interactive space.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's your value. You earned it. Why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you be able to pass it to your friend if you want to? And actually, I think by being able to do that, you make the program more valuable because the member isn't thinking, "Oh, I've got to use this thing, this offer that I didn't really want to use right now. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. It's going to expire or whatever." And actually, you can think, "Oh, I can just pass this to somebody I love or friend or whatever, and they can get value from what I earned. I don't have to lose it. I don't have to. I don't have to miss out on this benefit that I have dutifully earned as a loyal member." And I
Well,
think yeah, I was going to say before we started recording, we were talking about that, and you were talking about the value of loyalty and how breakage actually is just the enemy of loyalty, really. Although all CFOs out there love a bit of breakage, that's really not the approach.
well, breakage has always been in the calculation for loyalty. Unfortunately, there's $140 billion in some estimates of unused loyalty currency out there. And if you're, I studied economics in college, which I get to pull out every once in a while. But if you believe in the notion of of velocity of currency, you have to believe that $140 billion of currency will stimulate
Yeah,
more than $140 billion of value, just by the nature of how currency itself is virtuous to has a velocity to it as it changes hands and creates value and so forth and so on. That's generally a principle of money. So I think that's part of it. And I think consumers know when a loyalty value proposition has been designed for the business and the financial protection of the company more so than for them, and they shy away from those value propositions that are either painfully low, like a 1% value proposition is so negligible. And this is less about the blockchain, but that part of it can be managed by the blockchain is this disparate nature of discounts and promotions and points and other incentives in the business. So they're just all kind of all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
So the loyalty value proposition is going to seem very small at 1% if you're going to go and mark everything in the store off 30% to everyone. So what value does that give me if I'm loyal, if everyone can get a huge discount for the same item?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good point. So I suppose killer question is, how does the blockchain actually enable members to get value out of the ecosystem?
Well, not being a technological expert, the notion of the blockchain is, well, the open ledger itself being accessible to the endpoints per se, but also that the asset of the reward or whatever it is assigned to me individually, and it's mine. And that transference of ownership along with the open architecture of the blockchain should mean that I earned a reward here. And if I'm in an environment of participants, then I can share it with someone, or another company may offer to accept the currency of another program in the future, in the sense that there's a ledger somewhere that translates the currency from one to the other. At a high level, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're absolutely right. That the use of the ledger and the blockchain technology means that it's owned. That reward is now owned by the member, and it's up to them what they do with it. So the brand can't expire it. They can't draw it back. It's theirs, and they can use it. And if they want to donate it, if they want to give it to a friend, if they want to exchange it for air miles, or they want to give it to charity, or whatever they want to do, that's entirely up to them. And I think that's actually where we'll end up with this much wider ecosystem, which will be actually much more valuable to members. But I suppose it does kind of shine a bit more. Two questions. The first question actually is, how does that actually work? I know the answer to this, but it's through the smart contracts, right? So this is why these smart contracts, they are programmable, they are repeatable, they always work. So if you meet a set of criteria, then you will be able to access this new thing, or process it through a particular app or whatever. And I haven't explained that terribly well. Maybe you could explain smart contracts.
No, I think that's my understanding. As the object lives on the blockchain, it is a piece of code and programming that's carries along with it. In that sense, it's a personalized rules engine, I guess, for that specific digital asset is what I think of. That's the word I've used before. And in the sense that it can have code, it can have timers in it, it can have a complex notion that perhaps if you haven't used it and it's sitting in a wallet somewhere, that it can change form, it can send you a message, it can be a living object, so to speak, in a way that we're not that familiar with, because the NFTs, the closest thing that we've seen to that in more of like the art and content versions of those, but they have a much broader application of being a time-based mini program, if you will, which is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're asking me.
Yeah, and I think those smart contracts also, they can save an awful lot of time in the kind of processing and negotiation of different kind of value propositions. I think, or I know that there's a few airlines that are using these in terms of, if you are a sort of coalition airline, like if you're Star Alliance or IAG, etc., you will use those to negotiate sale and purchase of your air miles to partners based on how many they buy. And you can just set that up in a smart contract. If they buy 500, they pay this amount. If they buy 5,000, they pay a bit less. They buy 50,000, they pay even less. And actually, they can just be set up in this as a smart contract on the blockchain, and the transaction just flows through. And there's no constant negotiation. There's no pre-agreement. It's just in there and ready to go. And I think there's lots of different uses of where smart contracts can facilitate a lot more ease through our network, especially with regard to coalition.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about coalition, but I'm skipping ahead. There is another subject actually that we wanted to talk about, which is a bit more about the kind of the clunkiness of our existing loyalty tech, and where blockchain can sort of help us to smooth the process. And I wonder what you have to say about that. If you had any examples of where you think our technology platforms are going to be enhanced by blockchain.
Yeah, I think that at least traditional loyalty technology that I can speak about, not naming names, and I'm sure there's those that are evolving that I don't know about, so I don't want to speak to a specific platform, is there's rules built into the system that evaluate data that come in about customer behavior, and then points are rewarded or points are taken away in the point bank, and that changes when you change member level, that changes based on promotional activity, and that's a whole interwoven complex system of MarTech and loyalty platform and internal systems and data feeds and data cleansing and all of that makes that happen, which is part of why we're specialists in loyalty, is not so much imagining a cool loyalty program, which is fun to do, but it is complex in its implementation, often in companies where there's just a lot of systems and whatnot that need to take place. The closer we can get to the origin system, I guess I would say, to not have to pass through so many other systems to be able to enable the reward or enable the earn or what have you, it seems to be that would be ideal. So the extent that the blockchain has more potential connectivities to points of payment or wallets and things of that nature, along with the expedient contracts and things of the nature, seem to be a good direction for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So how does the smart contracts, the blockchain, etc., it solves a lot of technological problems, but how does smart contracts make it better for the member?
Yeah, I feel that consumers are quite inundated and distracted with so many incoming messages and keeping track of so many things, and it's still like a broken chain between a text and a link and a website and a checkout procedure and all of that, whereas I think a smart contract would enable more things to happen quickly and simultaneously, and have it be more interactive, because it's able to be more animated or dynamic, and it could help me learn or what have you. It could be a more compact, all-in-one set of instructions and or processes within the smart contract. But also, it, like I said before, if I'm not aware of having an award or what have you, it could go and get it and bring it to me. And like, I just think there's more programming you could do in that environment that would be more engaging and more helpful to the member to make sure they get the value out of the program.
Yeah, I love that point. Actually, I think that is the thing for me, is that it enables a member who has earned air miles or hotel points, whatever. It gives them a massive variety of options for them to use that currency, that loyalty currency.
Yes.
And I think in my article I wrote about this in terms of the Camino network and what they're doing with Lufthansa and Accor and other people. And I think the Lufthansa example is great, because what they do there is you earn your miles and more points, and you are then able to use them in a very local way. So you can take your air miles and you can use them in a local theatre, cab service, taxi service, whatever, or a local restaurant, etc. Now that could never be done through a traditional API type connection. It would just never reach the top of the tech stack list, the tech development list rather, in terms of, can you create an API link with a local restaurant in Berlin or wherever? Just would never happen. But with the blockchain, essentially that restaurant just downloads the app, they agree to the smart contract online, done. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but actually not much. So yeah, this is where it actually makes it really localized and personalized for the member.
100%.
And that in turn makes them want to earn miles and more, even more, because they know that they can get really relevant things out the back of it. And that for me is the sort of killer point around blockchain. Why is blockchain the future of loyalty? Although maybe a traditional loyalty program manager might worry about losing control, they might worry about the currency leaving the ecosystem, etc. This is all good for the member, and therefore they will want your currency most. And that's really the nub of it. Okay, last point then that we were going to talk about is coalition programs. So I love a coalition program. I worked at Nectar for years and years in the UK, and that was really my kind of start of my career in the loyalty industry. And members love a coalition program. Brands not so much. I think brands find coalition programs tough. The reconciliation of points and value, potential competitive within the same coalition can be a problem. There's lots of problems with coalition. But I suppose the question is blockchain for loyalty going to solve that? Is coalition going to make a comeback off the back of blockchain, I wonder?
Yeah, I mean, the value proposition in the US at least has always been a challenge due to rules that are primarily barriers to the business. One is we don't have national chains, for example, and things like grocery or gas. There's so many in this environment. You mentioned localization. It's really then who becomes the host and leans in to initiate the coalition. But certainly by the model that you've described, it would work to have a coalition where it's as local as possible. Certainly built here in the U.S. to our friends at Built are working through that technology now. I'm not sure if they're using blockchain or not, but it seems like that could be right on the horizon to create pods of engagement in a local community, with the pillar being the property management companies that host people that live there. So that model is unique in its idea, but it can be a framework that could be scaled around other businesses to draw people in and be able to enable businesses quickly that want to partner together at scale, whether it's mid-sized chains or a few big companies, or even a coalition of smaller businesses within a particular city, which again has been tried before, but it's challenging. Someone's got to run the coalition itself, which is often the challenge, I think.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, so that's a good point. You think about major coalitions like a Nectar in the UK, or there have been lots of other coalitions around the world. Major, a bank, a fuel, a grocer, etc. But actually, you know, it could be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker getting a coalition together on their high street almost. And even that will be possible through blockchain quite easily. And it will kind of reconcile, it will provide offers, smart contracts, etc. So yeah, it seems to be the future. So I suppose last question for you, before we get into our one random question, don't forget that. But the last question on blockchain, I suppose, is blockchain the next generation of engagement, do you think?
Well, when I was working recently at a major auto manufacturing company, one thing that we knew is that people love their cars. They hand them over to generations. They give cars to their kids. They share stories about their cars, and this is as much around Web3 and blockchain as anything else, and the intersection of that and smart contracts and NFTs. But we would truly believe that both engagement and participation and community and this notion of generational ownership and sharing of rewards and or assets and or leases was the future. So I tend to be bullish on leaning in towards that technology being more than just a back end mechanism for accounting and ledgering, but more how it can drive engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think blockchain will give us that. So yeah, hurrah for blockchain. Here we go. It is the future. Excellent. Well, Ali, I think that's been a fascinating conversation. I liked it anyway, because I'm really into this new blockchain solutions. But before we go, we always do our one random question. We've had all sorts of different ones. I think my favorite of all time was, what's the best Disney movie ever? But we're not going to ask you that, although you can answer if you like. The question I'm going to ask you is, because we're talking about blockchain, is who was the inventor of Bitcoin? Do you know? I'll be impressed if you know.
I think I might have known this in the past because I worked briefly for Bakkt, which was a crypto company. But sorry, I'm not remembering it.
Nah, don't worry. That was a tough one. So it was a guy called Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay.
So yeah, try and remember that for next time maybe. But yeah, but thank you very much. It's been a really fascinating conversation. I really believe in blockchain, actually. I think it solves a lot of problems, and I think there are quite a lot of clunky, stitched together solutions out there which do work. But, you know, we need to start thinking about moving into the future. And in terms of, you know, ownership of rewards, ownership of customer data, movement of information, all that sort of stuff that loyalty is great at, I think blockchain has a solution there for us all.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Tom.
It's a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you again soon.